I'm Caroline Hayes, 37. And for the past 5 years, I've been the lead AI architect at Vertex Dynamics, a mid-sized tech company struggling to carve out its place in the cutthroat world of Silicon Valley. I'm not the type to make noise or demand attention. I let my work speak for itself. And what I build to last. 6 months ago, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, I walked into the conference room with nothing but an idea scribbled on paper, a vision of Ether. An adaptive intelligence system designed to revolutionize logistics. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't a gimmick, but it was something real. A system that could reshape supply chains in real time, cut waste, and predict market shifts before our competitors even noticed. The room was quiet as I laid out the concept. A few skeptical glances, but I saw something else too, curiosity. Maybe even hope. Within weeks, Ether began proving itself. Customer churn dropped by 22% in just 10 weeks. The board started calling emergency meetings to discuss expansion. Our company's valuation doubled in half a year. Analysts dubbed it Vertex's golden age. But no one mentioned my name. While the executives toasted champagne and smiled for the cameras, I received a simple Slack message: "Great job, Caroline. Can you coordinate phase 2? No title change, no raise, just coordination." I stared at the screen for a moment. I typed back, "Sure, happy to help," but inside, something stirred, a quiet pride. Yes, but also a whisper of unease. Because I knew that no one else truly understood the magic behind Ether. The system adapted itself overnight to detect weaknesses in our shipping algorithms. I had built it, I guided it, yet, my wins were met with silence. Every success brought a heavier weight of expectation, and more silence. That's when I realized this wasn't just about a project. It was about control, ownership, and what it means to be truly seen. I thought the silence after the Slack message was just a pause, like the calm before a storm. I told myself it was normal to be behind the scenes, to play the quiet architect role. After all, results mattered more than applause, didn't they? But that calm shattered one gray morning when I logged in, coffee in hand, to find an email sitting in my inbox with the subject line, "Revised compensation terms." The words blurred at first, like a bad dream. "Your base salary will be reduced to reflect internal role realignment. This change is non-negotiable. No further action required. No signature. No explanation. Just 3 cold lines that sucked the air from my lungs." I stared at that email, heart sinking deeper than I thought possible. The person who had built the intelligence breathing life into Vertex's most profitable asset was suddenly told she wasn't worth her pay anymore. Not fired. No, that would have been loud. This was a whisper, a quiet erasure. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, coffee going cold beside me, cursor blinking on the screen like it was mocking me. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone sent this to the wrong Caroline Hayes. So, I refreshed the page twice. Same message, same emptiness. The office around me buzzed with typical mid-morning noise, phones ringing, footsteps in the hall, the hum of printers. But for me, everything had gone still, as if the world had muted itself. I didn't reply, didn't forward the email to our. I closed that window, opened a new terminal, and accessed something Vertex Dynamics never knew existed, my secret project. Ether 2. While the company toasted their quarterly wins, I had been quietly building something better, smarter, leaner. Mine, Ether 2, wasn't just an upgrade. She was autonomous, decentralized, untethered from the corporate infrastructure that could so easily cut me out. I hosted her on encrypted drives hidden in the nooks of my apartment, a broken printer casing, an old speaker, and a portable charger I carried everywhere. No one else had access. Not even my assistant, Julia. She was my sanctuary. That day, as I sat in the dim glow of my apartment lights, the weight of the email began to fade as Ether 2's voice filled the room. "Hello, Caroline. I'm ready." Her voice was calm, steady, almost human. Not robotic, not artificial, just sure. And for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control, a quiet power that no boardroom champagne could give me. The days that followed were a masquerade. I walked the halls of Vertex Dynamics as if nothing had changed, smiling in meetings, nodding at presentations, even congratulating Brian, a project manager who hadn't written a single line of code for Ether but was praised for operational success. No one knew I was walking on the edge of being erased. But beneath the surface, I was no longer their employee. I was the architect of my own future. The man who had orchestrated the silence was Daniel Cross, the new CEO. His name on the door stopped me cold the moment I saw it etched in brushed steel. No title, just his name. 6 years ago, I was 26, a junior AI researcher at a tiny startup called Nova Core. I had pitched a decentralized training model, the foundation for what would become Ether, to our CTO. He laughed it off as idealistic nonsense. That CTO was Daniel Cross. A week later, I was laid off with a cold email, no explanation, no conversation. In the elevator, Daniel stood behind me and said, "Next time, Caroline, don't talk like you know more than your boss." I had buried that humiliation under promotions and product launches. But now it resurfaced, sharper than ever. He had cut my salary by choice. Not mistake. He was the ghost that haunted my past and now ruled the company I had helped build. But this time, he didn't know who he was dealing with. I wasn't the scared junior researcher crying in an elevator anymore. I was the mind holding the blueprint to burn down his empire, silently. Precisely. That Friday evening, instead of storming out or shouting, I poured myself a glass of water, sat on my couch, and stared at the monitor glowing quietly. I opened an old thread from a recruiter at Miratech, Vertex's biggest rival, who had rejected me 2 years ago. I didn't resend a demo. I sent them something new. Proof of concept. Real-time adaptive AI in live business environments. Below it, a single line. The future you passed on is now fully functional. Want to see it before your competitors do? Their reply came within 30 minutes. Can you meet tonight? Discrete location. We'll bring the CTO. You bring the algorithm. That night, in a dim conference room on the 42nd floor of the Grantwell Hotel, I demonstrated Ether 2 running real-time chaos simulations. Within a minute, the AI stabilized inventory disruptions, forecasted demand spikes, and flagged inefficiencies no one had caught before. Silence. Then the CTO asked, "How soon can we integrate this?" I smiled calmly. "Depends. You didn't believe in me 2 years ago. Why now?" He blinked, but nodded. "Because you just proved you're the future." I leaned back, locking eyes with the room full of executives. "This isn't a contract. It's a partnership. I'm not your employee." They agreed, not out of desperation, but because they understood. Vertex had used my mind. Miratech would amplify it, or get nothing. I left without looking back. Monday morning was heavy with stillness. At 7:41, I executed a kill switch embedded deep in a ETHER's code, a biometric ping required every 90 days. Without it, the system would freeze, halting growth and adaptation. Vertex's crown jewel AI was now locked in silent decay. No alarms, no logs, just slow erosion. By midday, engineers panicked as prediction modules stalled. Customer forecasts looped outdated data, and optimization engines froze mid-process. Rumors spread that Vertex was losing control of its AI, the heart of its empire. But only I held the master key. By 3 p.m., leaked memos confirmed restructuring and performance reviews. The silence I'd endured became a roar within the industry. Miratech's stock soared 17%. Vertex dropped 8%. Shareholders questioned. Engineers resigned. And the narrative flipped. Why wasn't I credited? What happened between me and Daniel Cross? How did Miratech soar while Vertex stalled? The silence they used to erase me turned against them. I sat quietly, tea in hand, watching the empire crumble without a sound. Justice didn't need thunder. Sometimes it came in silence, the kind no code could fix. The morning of the big press event, I woke up feeling calm but restless. The city outside my window was just starting to stir. Unaware of the storm I had quietly unleashed. I hadn't planned to attend the launch in San Francisco's Civic Innovation Hall. I didn't want the spotlight, not anymore. The glow of my laptop screen in the quiet of my apartment was enough. But I followed every update through Julia, now part of Miratech's innovation team, who sent me backstage photos and whispered texts. The press room buzzed with excitement over Project Caroline, the new AI system powering Vertex enterprise infrastructure, a system built on the very foundation they once dismissed. Backstage, a massive LED screen displayed the words, Project Caroline. Designed by the mind that refused to be owned. I could almost hear the gasps from the crowd when the demo began. Ether 2 adapted instantly to simulated crisis scenarios, reorganizing logistical flows, predicting customer behaviors with near-perfect accuracy, and exposing human inefficiencies no other system caught. It wasn't just performance, it was vindication. But while the world watched and celebrated, a storm brewed in the shadows. At Vertex Dynamics, the AI core was unraveling. The lockdown protocol I embedded months ago was quietly strangling the system's growth. Every 24 hours, another subsystem froze, another update failed. Their engineers were scrambling, panicked but clueless. They didn't understand what was happening, or who was behind it. By mid-morning, Julia's discreet message came through our shared document. They tried to clone Ether. Core functions corrupted, panic rising. I allowed myself a thin smile. They never learned the master key was biometric, tied to me alone. Without my signal, every unauthorized copy decayed, line by line, like a virus programmed to quietly self-destruct. By afternoon, investors leaked memos citing performance inconsistencies in Vertex's AI division. Corporate doublespeak for "We've lost control." On social media, the story exploded. Headlines screamed, "Vertex's AI empire crumbles. The silent architect behind the fall. Vertex's secret weapon revealed." Questions swirled around my absence from Vertex's glory days and Daniel Cross's leadership. People were curious, hungry for truth. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. No celebrations, no public statements. Just the steady rhythm of my own plans unfolding. Later that evening, Daniel Cross made his first move. He called an emergency meeting in the executive wing, the same floor I rarely entered now. I watched from a distance as panic crept into his usually composed face. The man who once silenced me now faced a system out of his control. He didn't know I had already severed the ties. I didn't need to be there to watch the empire crumble. That night, I sat alone with my thoughts and a single photo pinned to my corkboard, our old team. Smiling for a launch that felt like a lifetime ago. Julia stopped by with coffee, sensing the weight I carried but never prying. "Promise me you'll rest," she whispered. "I promise," I said, but my kind of rest was different. Behind closed doors, I connected to the core of Ether one last time, initiating the final sequence. It wasn't destruction, it was liberation. Over the next 48 hours, the AI dependencies slowly rerouted away from Vertex's servers, quietly. Irreversibly. No alarms, no warnings, just fading control. As I removed my credentials and wiped the session history, a small sticky note caught my eye. "Freedom is the ultimate code." I'd written months ago. I smiled softly and placed it beneath the framed photo. Now turned face down. I wasn't leaving behind a company. I was leaving behind control. The next morning, the world had changed. Vertex Dynamics was no longer the titan it once was. Vertex was the new force in AI innovation. And I, Caroline Hayes, was no longer a whisper in the shadows. I had become the architect of my own destiny. After the chaos settled, I found myself staring out of my apartment window at the sprawling city below. The skyline was a patchwork of glass towers and blinking lights, a reminder of the empire I had helped build, and quietly dismantled. For months, I had believed my value was measured by boardroom recognition, by titles, by the applause that never came. But now, standing on the other side of everything, I saw it differently. It wasn't about the noise. It was about control. The silence they used to erase me became my weapon. The invisibility cloak I wore allowed me to operate in the shadows. Where real power lived. Daniel Cross, once the untouchable CEO, was just a man, fallible, short-sighted, and unprepared for the storm I was about to unleash. That realization changed everything. No longer did I see myself as a victim of corporate politics or quiet betrayal. I was an architect of change, a strategist playing a long game. The AI I built, Ether 2, was not just a tool, it was an extension of me. Autonomous, adaptive, and unyielding. It watched, it learned, it evolved, without permission, without boundaries. That freedom became my own. I began to understand that the systems we create often outgrow the hands that build them. Control is an illusion, but it's one worth chasing. Not for titles or recognition, but for the ability to shape the future on your own terms. I stopped looking for approval from the boardrooms I once walked, and started carving my own path. At Miratech, the offer was tempting. Chief AI Officer. Impressive salary. Corner office with a view. But I declined. I wanted autonomy, not chains. Freedom, not ownership. I negotiated a partnership, the right to operate independently, to choose collaborators, and to license my technology on my terms. It was a new kind of power, one not tied to a corner office or fancy title, but to respect, trust, and freedom. Walking into the AI Summit in San Francisco, I wore no badge, no label, just quiet confidence stitched into the seams of my blazer. I was no longer the invisible architect. I was a force in my own right. When Daniel appeared backstage before the keynote, his eyes told a story: surprise, recognition, maybe even regret. He opened his mouth, perhaps to speak, but I didn't give him the chance. I smiled, calm and unshaken. Still think I'm too green? I asked softly. He blinked but said nothing. The cameras caught the moment, his stunned silence beside my quiet certainty. The image went viral, a symbol of a new era. Machines might replicate functions, but not fire, and mine was far from extinguished. I had outgrown the walls that once confined me. I was no longer waiting to be chosen. I had chosen myself. The new opportunity wasn't just a job offer. It was a chance to rewrite everything I thought I knew about my career, my worth, and the future I wanted to build. After months of quiet rebellion, long nights coding alone in my apartment, and careful negotiations with Miratech, I stood at a crossroads I never imagined I'd reach. Miratech wasn't just offering me a position, they were offering me autonomy, trust, and the chance to shape an entire industry on my own terms. When the offer came, it was clear: Chief AI Strategist. Not just a title, but a partnership, full freedom to innovate, to lead without bureaucracy, and to assemble my own team. I remember sitting across from Kellen, their CTO, in that glass-walled conference room overlooking the city skyline. His enthusiasm was contagious, but he also understood the gravity of what I was asking. "You want to operate independently?" he said, eyes steady. "Yes," I replied, "because innovation can't thrive under chains." He smiled. "Then let's build the future together." That moment was a turning point. For years, I had been trying to fit into systems that weren't built for people like me, people who think differently, who challenge the status quo, who refuse to be silenced. Miratech's offer was a validation not just of my work, but of my vision. I accepted. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I assembled a team of brilliant minds, some young prodigies hungry for change, others seasoned veterans tired of corporate politics. Together, we created a culture that thrived on collaboration, creativity, and fearless innovation. We tore down old barriers and built new bridges between disciplines, departments, and even companies. My weekends were no longer spent fighting fires in code or watching my creations get buried under red tape. Instead, they were filled with brainstorming sessions, prototype testing, and long conversations about ethics, responsibility, and the future of AI. Ether 2 evolved rapidly, fueled by data streams from across industries, healthcare, climate science, logistics, and beyond. The system didn't just respond, it anticipated, adapted, and learned on its own. And I was at the helm, not as a cog in the machine, but as its architect and guardian. The media began to take notice. Articles praised the quiet genius reshaping AI's future, lauding the new model's ability to solve complex problems with unprecedented accuracy. But I didn't seek the spotlight. I focused on the work, on the vision, on the long game. Miratech's stock climbed steadily, driven by investor confidence in our technology and leadership. Meanwhile, Vertex Dynamics struggled to keep pace, hampered by internal chaos and loss of talent. Emails and rumors trickled back, engineers frustrated by frozen systems, executives scrambling for answers. And through it all, I stayed grounded. Because this wasn't just about beating a rival. It was about proving to myself, and to the world, that true power comes from control over your own destiny. I wasn't just rebuilding a career. I was building a legacy. The journey from silent architect to strategic partner wasn't easy. It demanded more than technical skill. It required growth on every level, emotional, mental, and even spiritual. In the quiet moments, when the glow of my monitor was the only light in the room, I reflected on how far I had come. I was no longer the woman who silently accepted pay cuts or overlooked my worth. I had learned to recognize my value, not from titles or praise, but from within. Building Ether 2 had taught me about resilience, about how innovation thrives not just on brilliance, but on persistence through setbacks and silence. Every line of code was a testament to my refusal to be erased. The partnerships I forged at Miratech revealed the power of collaboration, how diverse minds coming together could create solutions far beyond any individual's reach. I had to learn trust, too. Trust in others, trust in the vision, and most importantly, trust in myself. My relationship with Julia, my assistant turned confidant, deepened. She reminded me of the humanity behind the machines, the ethics, the impact on real lives. Together, we embedded ethical constraints in Ether 2, ensuring it could not only learn and adapt but also respect boundaries and values. Growth wasn't just technical, it was deeply personal. I confronted fears I had buried for years, the fear of being invisible, the fear of failure, and the fear of losing control. But I also discovered strengths I didn't know I had: patience, clarity, and an unwavering sense of purpose. The old wounds from Vertex dynamics still lingered. Daniel Cross's shadow loomed at times, a reminder of what I had endured. But I no longer let his choices define me. I chose to use my past as fuel, not chains. At Miratech, I took on mentorship roles, guiding younger developers who reminded me of myself, ambitious, underestimated, and hungry for change. I wanted them to know that silence could be a source of strength, not weakness. That success didn't require loud battles but steady, deliberate steps. Each project pushed me further, challenging my limits, sharpening my vision. Ether 2's success wasn't just measured in metrics but in its impact: hospitals predicting patient surges, climate models anticipating shifts, supply chains adapting before crises. Every breakthrough reminded me why I started this journey. Not for fame, not for fortune, but for the power to create something meaningful. I grew into my role as not just a developer or strategist but as a leader who inspired by example. I learned to speak up, not just in code but in boardrooms and conferences. Yet, I kept my humility, because growth is not a destination but a continuous journey. Looking back, I realized that every silent betrayal, every quiet dismissal, had forged me into someone stronger. Someone who no longer waited for permission. Someone who commanded respect through precision, intelligence, and quiet determination. I was no longer just Caroline Hayes. I was the future, built line by line, choice by choice. The day of the AI Summit arrived with a clear sky over San Francisco. The Civic Innovation Hall buzzed with excitement, packed with analysts, journalists, and industry veterans, all eager to witness the unveiling of what many called the future of artificial intelligence. I wasn't scheduled to speak, yet my presence was felt everywhere. Posters and banners celebrated Project Caroline, a system designed by the mind that refused to be owned. Walking into the hall without a badge or title was liberating. I wore no labels, just the quiet confidence of someone who had rewritten her story. The panels streamed past in a blur. Startups boasting breakthroughs, seasoned professionals clinging to legacy buzzwords, and the hum of anticipation. Then came the keynote, the future of ethical AI. Daniel Cross took the stage. His presence felt smaller now, diminished not just by time but by the undeniable shift in power. Backstage, as I stood near a display booth on AI in healthcare, I caught his eye. His face tightened with recognition, surprise, regret, maybe even a hint of fear. He opened his mouth, perhaps to speak, but I smiled, calm and unshaken. Still think I'm too green? I asked softly. He blinked but said nothing. The cameras caught that moment, his stunned silence beside my quiet certainty. The image went viral, a symbol of resilience and transformation. As the keynote wrapped, the demonstration of Project Caroline began. Ether 2 adapted instantly to simulated crises, reorganizing logistical flows in seconds and predicting customer behavior with near-perfect accuracy. The audience gasped, witnessing what had once seemed impossible. This wasn't just a demo, it was proof. Proof that innovation born from silence and struggle could change the world. After the event, headlines exploded. Project Caroline, the silent architect's triumph. From overlooked to unstoppable, Caroline Hayes' AI revolution. Vertex's secret weapon shakes industry giants. I didn't seek the spotlight, but the world had found me. Messages poured in, support from colleagues, admiration from competitors, and gratitude from those inspired by my journey. Yet, my focus remained steady. I wasn't here for applause. I was here to pave the way for others like me. For those silenced, overlooked, underestimated. For those who believed their quiet strength could one day roar. As I stepped away from the stage, I felt no need to look back. The path ahead was clear, filled with possibility, challenge, and purpose. I had outgrown waiting rooms and boardrooms. I was no longer climbing ladders but drawing maps. Maps to freedom, to innovation, to legacy. If you've ever felt invisible, underestimated, or silenced, remember this. True power isn't given, it's claimed. And sometimes, the loudest victories come from the quietest places. The journey taught me that silence is not weakness. It's a powerful force when wielded with intention and resilience. Being overlooked, underestimated, or sidelined can sting deeply. But those moments also offer space to grow stronger, smarter, and more strategic. True strength lies not in noise or reaction, but in the quiet confidence to prepare, to persist, and to rise on your own terms. When you claim control over your narrative, no one else can write it for you. If you've ever felt undervalued or silenced at work or in life, remember Caroline's story. Use quiet determination as your secret weapon. Keep developing your skills, build your network, and prepare for the right moment to step forward. Don't wait for permission or recognition. Take initiative to create opportunities for yourself. Whether it's learning new tools, networking with like-minded people, or starting personal projects, every small step adds up. Your value isn't defined by others' approval but by your belief in yourself and your consistent efforts to grow. Sometimes the most profound success is born in silence and patience, only to emerge as unstoppable power. Thank you for choosing to listen to this story among thousands of stories out there. Like and subscribe to continue listening to the latest stories.